Hi guys, I'm working on a few dummy cakes I need to cover for the upcoming tutorials, and I thought I would share my way of covering cakes not cakes, dummy cakes in fondant, especially if you are doing some work for wedding shows or you just want to practice working on your cake designs. I usually I have on hand quite a few of them. So first thing we need to talk about what I'm using to cover my cakes in fondant. I use satinized fondant because that's what I use all the time for all my cakes, and I use satinized fondant in white. And because I live in Illinois and climate changes, sometimes if my fondant is too soft or I don't know how to handle it or I can't handle it, I use the cheapest stylo powder. This one is from Hobby Lobby, so I add just about maybe a teaspoon of stylo powder to my fondant to make it more stiff, I would say. And if my fondant gives me an elephant skin, I usually add just a little bit of Crisco or any vegetable fat, but I prefer not to do that. For the ingredients, another thing I use is piping gel. This is just regular piping gel, and I put it in a glass with a silicone brush and I mixed it with water. So I do make it a little bit watery because I apply a thin layer of watered down piping gel to my dummy cakes before attaching fondant. I don't use Crisco or any other ingredients to cover my dummy cakes because I don't like touching Crisco. It smells kind of weird. For the and I use cornstarch obviously for to make my fondant not sticky. For the tools, I have two favorite rolling pins that I use all the time. This one is when you can roll it just like this, and it makes it a little bit easier to start, especially if I need to roll something longer. The brand is Fiberware, and I bought it on Amazon for like $10 or something. And this is your regular fondant rolling pin, but it's just a little bit too heavy for me to roll out, especially if I use a lot, if I'm rolling a lot of fondant. And you will need a pin, just a tiny pin to poke any air bubbles if you have, and to cut my fondant out of to make sharp edges. I use this spatula, how do you call this? Like the scraper by Cake Safe, because it's extremely sharp. Or you can use the blade. This is just a regular blade. And I always take a new one for each application because it is sharp. Just be careful because it's actually sharp. And I have quite a few Fondant Smoothers. I prefer this one. I have no idea what brand it is, but I have quite a few of them because when I need to smooth my fondant, obviously that's what I use. Small rolling pin to transfer my fondant to a dummy cake, and I do paneling. I don't do the method when you roll it out and just for dummy cakes, because that's my preference. And another thing I always have on my hand is a bowl for scrap pieces and a bench scraper or bowl scraper to clean my table, because when you're working with white fondant, it is extremely important to keep your table clean. And when you run your hand on your table and you know that you have some scraps of things stuck, it's better to clean it and take it out from your table. And I have a damp paper towel or regular towel because I clean my tools, like especially this tool to cut sharp edges, because when you have fondant stuck to it, it won't make it easy to work with. And I have, let me grab them, so, and it's not all what I have on my hand to do, so I need to do this today. And I'll show you how I do and cover fondant cakes my way, dummy cakes. How I cover dummy cakes in fondant. This is just a regular dummy cake. I reuse them all the time, and most of the time I just, when I'm done with the cake design, I just put them in my dishwasher and then reuse them again. But between uses, if you're going to reuse your dummy cakes and you want to put them in your dishwasher, make sure they are dry, because if you have any moisture trapped in, you can see some weird things on your dummy cakes, on your designs. And I do not prep my dummy cakes because of the designs I make, and usually I'm not striving for extremely super smooth, beautiful cakes. I usually add bas relief, or most of the time that's like Vifi paper flowers or something. So this, you can see I have a few holes and things I don't care much about. So the first thing I need to do is prep my fondant. And again, I use Satin Ice fondant just because that's what I have on hand. Should be enough. So make sure it's smooth on one side. I just need one side. That is going to be my face side to cover my top. And I do my tops first and then my sides. A little bit of cornstarch on my table, like this. And I'm going to use my rolling pin to roll it out. And usually, depends on the size, but same if you're working with dough, if you need to roll out that regular dough, you just need to do a quarter turn or half turn, depends on your preferences. So, like this, and it should be good enough. So you can see I don't stress about that. I just make sure it is not sticky and I can smooth it out. Like that. I just need a small spot where I can put it on top. So my fondant is smooth. This is going to be my face side. I'll put it aside for a second. Take my dummy cake and apply a little bit of this mixture. And the mixture is piping gel, water it down. And I'm using a silicone brush because I can put it in a dishwasher to clean. And I'm applying just a thin layer on top. Then I'm going to take my piece, place it on top like this, and take my smoother to make sure it's relatively good coverage. Make sure I cut to the edge. So you can see I didn't spend any time and my fondant is smooth enough. And then I'm going to take this sharp tool. You can use a knife. I just prefer to use this. And I'm going to cut this, making sure that my tool touches the side of my cake, and I pull for this extra piece. And when you're doing this, make sure that your blade is clean. If you need to clean between cuts, please do that, because it will make your life much easier. So, okay, we'll see if I need to cut any extra pieces. Okay, and then I'll take this piece and I put it in a bag, because I'm going to reuse that. And for the rest, I'm going to run my hand and gently smooth and remove all the imperfections and sharp edges, if I have any. So now I have my top covered in fondant, and I will put it aside. I will clean my blade because I'm going to use it for the next step. And I'm taking my bench scraper and my scrub bowl, and I'm cleaning my table between each applications, because if I am not going to clean this, it is going to be stuck to my fondant piece for the next round. So I'm making sure that I do not have any imperfections on my table. So my table is smooth enough. Great, so now I have this piece, and I usually prefer to put it aside for a few seconds to dry, because it will make the fondant application a little bit easier. I have one I made a few minutes ago, and I will take something like riser or something a little bit smaller in diameter than my cake, because I want to cut my bottom part sharp, and I need for my blade to be able to get in between my table and my cake. And I will put it aside and we'll get ready to roll out my fondant. So I know that I need about this height, and as long as I can make it. Okay, so I'll take another piece of fondant. Maybe it doesn't match. I'll start with a square piece or rectangular and apply a little bit of fondant. So first step is to make the height I need. And I will try to keep it square. This should be enough. So, like this, it should be enough. And then the next step is to roll it out as long as I can get it. And if I get any air bubbles, I will take my pin and remove them. Usually I do the step when my fondant is relatively thick, because when I roll it out to the thickness I need, it might be already visible when I poke it. Just a little bit. Okay. Smooth my fondant. A little bit of cornstarch. I'll turn upside down, make sure it does not stick to my table. We'll roll it a little bit more. So this does look like a thickness I need. I will cut a few extra pieces that are, I don't need them. Like this. I will put it in a bag and start working on my dummy cake. Here I have my piping gel mixture, and I will apply to the top and to the bottom. And a little bit in the middle. So now I have my fondant here, my fondant and my dummy cake. And I'm going to use this rolling pin. Make sure it's clean, because this is going to be my face set. Let me check. Yeah, I think this is going to be better as my face set. Cornstarch. Take a rolling pin to roll it out. Roll it in, I should say. And I have my riser here. My hands are clean and dry, and I'm going to gently roll it out as fast as I can. Like this. Okay. And first thing, I'm making sure that my fondant is stuck on top and on the bottom. And I do not have any air bubbles. Okay, then I'll take my knife or my blade to cut through both layers. Remove this piece, and this piece is not going to be in my bag because it's sticky and it has some piping gel on it. And I'm going to merge my sides together like this. Again, making sure that everything is beautiful and relatively smooth. Okay. And I have my riser there, so that's why I can attach this fondant to my table. And I'll take my smoother and we'll run it like this. If you worry about your backside, you can spend a little bit more time on cleaning this up and smoothing this fondant seam. But usually for me, like, my backside is my backside, whatever it looks like. And I will run my blade on my table to remove the excess fondant, just so I can put it in my bag and save it for later use. Because if I leave it on my cake and on the table, it will dry and it just will go to waste. Okay, this goes in my bag. My riser is there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my clean blade on top and remove the excess fondant here. But make sure that your blade is clean. I'm placing my blade flush with my towel. Clean it after a few applications. And just cut this. And you can see it's not perfect yet, but that's the point. Like this. This goes into my bag, and the rest probably will go to garbage. And then I'll run my hand to remove all the dry pieces. Like this. And on my smoother. Next step, what I'll do is I'll take a piece of wax paper. Clean my table a little bit. And put my cake upside down, my dummy cake. And now what I can do is I can make sure that my fondant is smooth on all sides. So now I can relatively heavy press on my bottom part and smooth this all around. And I'm not cutting my bottom part yet before I smooth it out, because sometimes fondant might shrink a little bit and you will have random pieces of styrofoam poking out, and it's not a good look. And what I'll do next is I'll take a piece of fondant, make sure it is smooth, press it on my fingers like this, take a little bit of cornstarch, and I will use it as my smoother to remove all the imperfections. Smush it again. A little bit of cornstarch. And run from the top to the bottom. And now I will cut my bottom part. And usually what I do when I cut is I move my blade inward. And it will help me to make sure that my edge is sharp and all the bits and pieces are inside and underneath my styrofoam. And this is already waste. First, because it's dry, and second, because I have random pieces of styrofoam cut into this fondant. Again, I will run my hand, make sure to remove all the dirt, like bad pieces, and I will turn it upside down on my riser, and now I have my cake. You can see it is smooth and it is sharp, and I don't know, it didn't take long. So to dry, I will keep it on this riser, probably on this wax paper, because it's just easier to dry. I will leave it to dry like this on the side, and you can see that's how much waste we had doing this technique. I hope you find this tutorial helpful. My name is Anastasia. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you somewhere next time. Bye bye.